Add one below. Cancun. Beautiful. So, I mean, you've linked me it, so we may as well. Let's put the teams in Cancun. Okay, beautiful. Good start. Good start. All right, so now normally with these tier lists, I do like an hour straight. And, you know, Caedrel yaps for an hour and he gets rage baited and then this happens, then that happens, then he remembers this and then he researches that and then he does this and it goes on for a while. I think that, I don't know how long was the last one? Caedrel World's Tier List 2024. Okay, I went on for 2 hours. Okay. We're not going to do 2 hours. What about my 2023 one? 30 minutes. A bit more pleasable. 2 hours one was a long yap. That was a long yap. A long yap. I will say, Vedius, I said on the last one that I wouldn't go on for too long, but I also went on for too long. You forgot to put IG on Cancun. Yeah. Now, I will preface a couple things because these tier lists create a lot of discourse and discussion. This is my opinion, okay, from what I've watched, and I will specify as I go how much I've watched based on my opinion, okay? So if you're like Caedrel, a very good example would be like Caedrel. Why are you ranking Team Secret Whales so low? I haven't watched them. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have. Why are you ranking 100 Thieves and VKE so low? VK so low. I haven't watched them. I haven't watched them that much. I've watched maybe 1 or 2 best of 5s to go off of certain teams. All right. I will say, though, almost every single one of these teams I've watched a lot of. And if I haven't, I've watched a lot of them internationally because some of them have been there internationally. And I've watched a couple of their domestic finals in relation to it. All right. So, also, the final thing I'll say is be nice. Be nice. Be nice to each other. This is obviously a very big piece of content for Worlds and MSIs and Internationals. And a lot of people want to know everyone's opinion. But be nice. All right, let's start off with something very obvious. God tier IG. We got to do this every year. You can sit there and argue that IG is the 4th seed, that they lose games, that, you know, they are not up to caliber, they're washed, their players are bad, they're swapping their jungler, they're not delivering. Obviously, I'll counter argue and say, team has the most aura, you're a fucking hate watcher, shut up, pussy. So if you want any more analytical analysis on that, then you're delusional. But what I will say for IG on a less ironic stand is IG rage rating 1 second in. Obviously, I'm insanely biased to one team, and it's IG. IG is a team that'll show up one day and look like an LFL Division 2 team with laners that don't know how to play the game. Looks like they're all muted, and half of them are fucking win trading. But sometimes, and you could see it a little bit during the summer split. Yes, I know teams threw against them, but sometimes you see world-class gameplay because they have players that they can just get shit done. They do have players that get shit done. Rookie's playoffs was really weak. Mako's playoffs was pretty weak. Wei's playoffs was pretty awful. I will say, you're going to call me biased, but I think that the 2 best performing players in playoffs and through the summer split were the Shy and Gala. Gala was fucking awful at the start of the year. I will say Gala is definitely the best one, yes. But I would say that jungle support mid are definitely what let IG down a lot through the split, through the playoffs. Gala was awful at the start of the year. I don't know what's happened to him. He's god tier right now. And the team that I'll be supporting till the day I die throughout this whole tournament is IG. I will be incredibly biased. If you see me on stream with IG in a game, I will be incredibly biased. And I'm going to preface a lot of that. At least IG don't have to swim home if they lose. Very valid point. Very valid point. But yeah, I'm a big IG enjoyer. Like I said, irony aside, I do think they have players that, like, you have Mako, Rookie, The Shy. Even Wei is no stranger to fucking winning. He's got international titles under his belt. Gala's, he has 1 international title on his belt, I think, Gala, right? And I think Gala is probably in the best form I've seen him in God knows how long. The World's meta, it's hard to say exactly what it'll be, but it probably will be the same. I don't think there'll be... like, Yunara got a little nerf, Corki got a little nerf for AD specifically. There's like mid lane changes, like Orianna's W is getting nerfed, so you can't really max W in lane anymore until you get like 400 AP to like make up for the 10% AP change to leverage the damage difference. So you have to go Q max, so her lane's weaker, and Rookie's a massive Orianna player. Azir, is it meta or not? So we can talk about meta all day long, but yeah, God tier IG. We don't even have to start there. All right, S tier teams at the tournament. Obviously, I think you'll watch a lot of tier lists here, and a lot of tier lists are very... I think personally, this Worlds, it's very hard to have a hot take. Okay, so I'll preface that already. Sometimes I have hot takes on players, and I don't mean that I have these hot takes because I'm trying to be different. I have hot takes based on what I see, right? So like, I think a lot of drama during MSI was my whole On take that he's not that strong. And then everyone was like, On is like a god tier support. And I'm sorry, you know, he turned out very good in summer. MSI, I do think he was still a bit of an inter. So if I ever have hot takes on this list, then it'll be related to that. Gen.G, best team of the year so far, 100%. I think everyone will have Gen.G and S tier. They're 100% favorites to win. They have some of the best players in the world in their roles. They have some of the best team play in the world. The thing that you have to understand about all of these teams is there's an argument to be had that they've all had a hiccup. Everyone's had a hiccup. Especially, I think there's a divide between the top 3 LCK and LPL in terms of hiccups, right? So like AL, insane spring, taking... I'm not putting them in SM. Okay. AL, insane spring, taking T1 and Gen.G to 5 games in MSI. Oh my god, Tabe, great drafting, full team fighting. Love to see it. Summer, what the fuck's going on? Oh my god, we're losing to Tess. Okay, it's pretty close still though. Okay, we lost. We're not in the top 2. T1 got fucking 3-0'd by HLE. They have to go to the lower bracket to play against Gen.G. But then they go 5 games against Gen.G. Gen.G lost to KT. Everyone has their hiccups throughout the year. HLE has their summer split was like a massive hiccup, I think, and their fucking spring road to MSI was a massive hiccup. Every team has something you can point at where they struggled. For Gen.G, it's obviously the KT series. I would personally say, and you can hold it against them for as long as you want, that the KT series is a blip on the radar. Kenyon and Chovy had a bit of a slump during the playoffs, I would say, but they kind of got it together towards the end. Gen.G, again, like I said, I'm not going to go 2 hours, but you're on 2-hour pace right now. 100% an S tier team. 100%. They should be favorites to everyone to win this tournament. Should left to right matter? How did I do this for last year's Worlds? Did I do... Because already I'm... Wait. Yeah, Vedi will come in and fix all of this. Ah, that's what I did. I labeled it favorite, runners-up, top 8, dark horse, lurk station, good luck. That does make it a lot easier. Okay. Well, I'll start off by telling you my hot take, and you can call this bias or you can label it as anything, but I'm not having any bias in these lists. My hot take is that the LCK is a lot stronger, I don't know if it's not a hot take, than the LPL coming into the tournament. I really do think so. I think AL's breakthrough got really close to being able to pull it off. But like, I know that a lot of people will rate BLG very highly coming into this tournament. But I would put BLG... I would say Gen.G, T1, HLE all beat BLG. And BLG would struggle like fuck to beat those 3 teams. Like, let's take T1, for example, who's also an S-tier team. You look at T1, they're pretty fucking strong in spring when it comes to MSI. They almost beat Gen.G, yada, 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 10 games, whatever it is. But I think maybe the thing people sleep on in T1 is that, yes, they're the 4th seed, but that Gen.G series that they played where they lost, game 1, they were winning. They had such strong winning positions. They fucked it up and through. Faker got caught in bot. They fucked up the Cloud Dragon dance for the soul. Game 2 and 3, they won pretty handily. And then game 4 is where I think T1's problem came in. And their drafting is awful. So the biggest problems I have with T1 is, first of all, Faker's lane phase is a bit weak. And Faker made up for that lane phase by playing champs that roam around, sure. Orianna was his kind of band-aid, so he goes Orianna, and then after that he'll play Ryze, or he'll play Galio, or he'll play Talia. He'll play like a roaming style, which will kind of leverage his mid lane phase strength that's quite weak, I think, right now. But this series, T1 could have just sent the 3-0 here, not to be a fucking dick about it. They fucking threw this game pretty hard, I would say. They had such strong winning positions. But regardless, I think Gen.G had crazy good macros coming to that, so massive props to Gen.G. They won game 2 pretty handily. They won game 3 pretty handily. Then you get to game 4 and you see shit like this. TF Sylas mid jungle into like the Casio fucking Skarner Blitz. The whole game's relying on bot lane. You go into game 5, carry us on Maokai support. There's a Lilia in the game. Like, I think fearless drafting for them, they just didn't figure that shit out when it came to game 4, game 5. So yeah, like my biggest criticisms, I also think Doran's performance dipped a little bit. I think old Doran towards spring was definitely looking a lot stronger than he was during like their playoffs run against Hammerlife, and then, you know, towards the end of this series. Fagerstein face, but I think T1's still an S tier team. 100%. This team's still a favorite to win the tournament. I think that there's no world where T1 wins a tournament and everyone says, "Wow, I didn't expect that." 100%. Same thing for Hammerlife. I think Hammerlife's a team that kind of pulled it together a little bit, but then you could see that. I mean, for me, the T1 the Hammerlife Gen G series. If you rewatch that series, what was it? It was a 3-1 for Gen G. That series it came down to team fights. I really think that a lot of that series just revolved around team fights so heavily. Maybe I can bring it up, but if I bring it up, I'll go on for a while. Like, those games were pretty close, and I think as much as Gen G won that final, and I think Ruler had probably one of the best series I've seen from him in a long time, the reason this series was so fun to watch was because game 1 was just a fucking brawl, fist fight. Like, the gold was pretty even the majority of the game until like massive explosive team fights had happened, and it came down to like hands diff where Ruler was like for sure a cut above. Game 2 was also, there was a massive Atakan fight where the Kai'Sa completely smurfed it. Sure, Genji had small early leads, but like for me, games came down to these points, you know, where they're rocking up to these fights at Atakan at 20 minutes, and the game's kind of decided here. And obviously Ruler clutched it, and I think the setup and stuff like that you can zoom in on and go over many, many times. But I think a lot of the macro is correct, and the way they play the game is correct. Rumble push stop, and then you're going to see them set up with TP, and they're going to fight the Atakan. It came down to execution. Game 3 was great from Hammerlife. In Game 4, I also think it came down to team fights as well, right? My YouTube thing doesn't really work very well. This was a massive, heavy team fight game. Also, I think this game, H. Lee had a monster lead. I remember Delight was just free killing everyone. Maybe it wasn't a monster lead. Maybe that's the wrong words. I felt like they had a lead. Oh, 3k lead. Not too bad, I guess, if you want to look at specifics. But again, also came down to teamfight execution. So I think these 3 teams are very evenly matched. I think Gen G is a cut above the crop, but these 2 evenly matched. And then I think BLG slots in kind of like next to them. I think one of the big things for BLG is obviously you can talk about their whole jungle situation, shit like that. But I can't sit here and glaze Knight and Bin hard enough. I think Bin Summer was quite weak, but Knight and Bin were just fucking insane in their playoffs run. Shadow, I think what Shadow did for them is kind of also underrated, I guess. I think a lot of people look at there and they're like, oh, Shadow goes in, honeymoon phase equals win. Listen, I'm just going to yap, by the way. I'm going to organize this way better earlier in a bit. I'm just yapping about teams and I'll organize them. I'll give it a little bit of context. I think that people underrate quite heavily how good Shadow's early game is. Like, Shadow's early games were insane in that finals. Yeah, Hammerlife's early games are also really good. I mean, in that finals against Gen G, Peanut just ran around and was a psychopath in the early games. I think this is not the finals. This is the upper bracket one, I think, because... Is this the upper bracket one? Yes, it is, because this is a Swain. Oh, here it is, Grand Finals. Yeah, I really think Shadow's early games were like a massive driving force behind them getting good leads. I think they have very strong drafts as well. Like Elkanon's Kate and Elise is always a fucking pleasure to watch. Here it is. Knight has his power picks, and I think that, yeah, the team overall pretty much comes together with Shadow bridging the early game when they have like insane players in mid top AD, fucking superstars. I could harp on about it forever. AL's a bit of a sad one because I also think similar to... I'm putting them all here because I'm just yapping. Similar to... what was I going to say? Hammerlife and Gen G. I feel like AL top esports also came down to a lot of team fighting when they got knocked out. I think a lot of people can just look at AL finishing in... What did they finish in? They finished 3rd, right? They lost the test in the lower bracket finals. What was it? Was it 3-1 or 3-2? I can't remember. I think it was 3-2, wasn't it? I feel like AL was insanely competitive and they had a lot of winning positions. Like, AL is a team that I think kind of... It was 3-1, I think. They kind of dropped the ball a little bit in the meta, and I think they kind of overfought a lot more than they needed to. But I think this team is insanely powerful. I've done a lot of videos on the LPL already, but I think they have the best jungler in the world, 100%. I think their top laner is fucking fantastic. Flandre gets a lot done in the game that you don't actually see I think there's definitely champs that are 100% banned against AL, like Scion ban and shit like that. And yeah, I do think Kanavi was running the early games a little bit into Tarzan, but I think that's just because he had stronger laners. Top esports, insanely strong team as well. Move BLG and AL to A tier. Yeah, I'm going to move things around in a second. Top esports, insanely strong team as well. I could bring up about 10 examples of JackeyLove being probably the best AD in the league, and then also being the worst AD in the league at the same time by the amount of times they just fucking get caught, and he gets caught and completely insit. I think 369's playoffs run was insanity. Like, 369 is probably one of the big reasons that they actually beat AL, if you remember his Gnar against AL. 369 is definitely one of the big reasons that they beat AL. Chat, why are you spamming the nose emote on cooldown? Can you let me? This is why I was gonna do this pre-recorded, because you're just yapping behind me. IG God tier, first team to go home. This is why I was gonna do it, so I don't sit here and get rage baited. What is it? Yeah, Kanavi is fucking God tier. I think 369's in God tier mode right now. And JackeyLove definitely has times where he's in God tier mode, but he definitely threw it. There was a game he was playing, Ezreal Karma, that sticks in my mind like a thumb, where I think they had a game state. Was it this game? No, he played Ezreal Karma before that, I think. Maybe it was this game. I don't know. There was a game they were playing Ezreal Karma and he got caught on mid and fucking ruined the whole game for a second. There's a game on Corki where he got monster caught half the time as well that I remember. So JackeyLove needs to fix that shit. But I think that the thing with all these teams is I think the LCK is pretty stronger than the LPL coming into the tournament. But they all have had their hiccups, like I said. All right, then you have the EU teams where, I mean, we can go through it and I'll put all my rankings through. You have G2, obviously. We've been through a lot of G2 things. If you watch the major region rundown videos, I think G2... I'm a bit worried about Broken Blade coming to this tournament. See if he can fix his lane phase. I feel like I don't want to be a dick. And I love BB. Trust me. Love him with all my heart. But I feel like BB was a bit of a passenger through G2's run. Yes, top lane wasn't like that important, but I don't think he was doing things to like win games. I think a lot of it was from jungle bot. I think Hansama is incredibly underrated as a player. Like, Hansama's year was fucking unreal, in my opinion. I think this guy was given the ball and he just never dropped it in domestic play. So I want to say that as much as a lot of the narrative might be around like Skumond got better and Labrov got better, I think the best player on G2 right now is Hansama. Like, next to Caps, I think Caps has had up and downs. He's had a lot more ups recently. I mean, he did get solo killed by Jojo, but I'm a massive Hansama stan. Massive Hansama stan. But yeah, G2's year is pretty obvious. Skumond got a lot better, Labrov got a lot better, and their jungle bot kind of ran the playoffs. I think their fundamentals are very strong as well. Then you have Fnatic, who I don't have much faith in at all. Their top jungle is going to get monster gapped, I think, at the tournament. Maybe they scrape some wins with like Upset Mickey, like carrying games, because they just played the bot, always played the bot, no matter what, played the bot. And Upset Mickey maybe scrape some wins, but I think they have pretty good macro, but I think their firepower-wise, they'll just be completely... Actually, yes, chat, you know what? Because you're just going to sit there and backseat, everyone's going to be an S tier, and then I'm just going to end the stream. Can you shut the fuck up? Yeah. The thing is, there's just levels to the game, and when it comes to Worlds, the caliber of players that Fnatic's going to be playing against is not like, no offense, it's not like the Mirwins or the Broken Blades or the El Yoyas of the world or, you know, like the Vladis of the world. Now you're playing against Knight and Kanavi and Tarzan and fucking Zeus, and the game just looks a lot different. The problem that I think EU teams have a lot when it comes to Worlds is you have a perception on a matchup, then you play it against a player who's just, or like a champ that doesn't have counters. You play it against players that are in this caliber of level, and your whole mindset shifts on how like champs work sometimes. Koi also will probably do a little bit better than Fnatic. I definitely think there's a gap between how well Fnatic and Koi will do versus how well G2 will do, and that's just even a little bit of cope, because if you think of last year's Worlds, I really think G2 came into last year's Worlds with a lot more promise behind them. And this year, they're a bit of more of a gamble. Yeah, Koi will do pretty decent. I think it's a similar story for Fnatic, where I think a lot of people will have the same expectation, where it'll be nice if they get some wins. If either Fnatic or Koi get out of Swiss stage, I think that's the most celebrated thing they'll ever have. But I think they have some strong points. I think for me, the best player that's been on Koi has been Jojo. I really think Jojo started the year and looked fucking awful. And I think now that we've come to the end of the year, I see it. I think Jojo's been so strong. So fucking strong. His lane phase has been insane. The pressure he puts on the map is so high. I think, yeah, Elioya is also really good. I think for me, the best player in spring was probably Alvaro. Now I think it's their mid-jungle, but mostly like Jojo. I think that guy has the strength to like rock up to this international and like win a lane if they needed to. If they need to happen. KT, I fucking hate this team. They're all a bunch of fucking okay, I don't hate this team. This team was, I mean, they're called KT Rollercoaster for a reason, right? They've replaced like 3 players on this roster all year. Perfect's definitely gotten a lot better. I think that Perfect definitely had like a lot of mental issues, it looked like from the outside. Not to judge him, whatever, but he looked like he had a lot of confidence problems. And he was just a weak link. Docdam just looked like he was kind of ass. And Peter was just like a bit of a, mid-tier support. I think for me, the most improved player on that roster is Peter. I think the level that Peter was playing at and the amount of plays that he was making... Oh my god, don't look at that final run of their playoffs. The amount of like plays that Peter was pulling off for KT kind of went under the radar. Kind of went under the radar because Cuz and BDD were carrying so much weight. I think that Cuz probably played the best series of his entire career in this Gen G KT series. I've never seen him... Like, I know BDD gets a lot of praise, but I think Cuz was just completely on another level during this series. So yeah, I mean, if anyone ever talks about KT, it's their mid-jungle. Absolute cinema. S-tier players. I think that if KT is going to get out of groups, which I actually think KT can probably make top 8 of this tournament pretty easily off the back of their mid-jungle. I think you'll see Perfect will probably be in a bit of a backseat / filler role. Docdam will have games where he fucking pops off though, because I also think Docdam... I think as Peter got better, Docdam had a lot more space to play the game. I think he does make a few silly mistakes in terms of team fighting, and I don't think he's at the level of Viper, Ruler, Gumayushi when it comes to team fights, but he's a player that you can kind of trust. FlyQuest, I mean, for me, like I said at the start, I haven't watched their whole year. I watched their finals, kind of last few best of fives. One thing that I think FlyQuest is very good at is they're very, very good at sequences. And what I mean by that is if you watch their finals specifically, their setup around a lot of objectives is very powerful. They have like really good Atakan executions from what I saw. And their Drake setups were also really good. The only issue I have with FlyQuest, and not to be a fucking asshole, but their competition just looked awful in regards to like the level they're playing at domestically versus the level they're gonna play at internationally. Like I'm down to sit here and say FlyQuest is crazy, inspired, maybe a top 5 jungler in the world. They have really good fundamentals, and then you rock up to international and you're like, holy shit, this is really jarring the level that they're playing at compared to what they played against. VKS I didn't really watch. CFO, I have international to go off, and CFO, I think their mid-jungle is just always been the biggest highlight for me. I definitely think if there's ever a dark horse coming into this tournament, it's probably CFO. There's a world where CFO, I mean, you saw that MSI, they took T1, they took T1 to 5 games. Like, this is unheard of. Unheard of, they took T1 to 5 games. I don't know how they always do it in this region, but PSG took BLG to 5 games at MSI last year. CFO took... So obviously you'll see that the info I have of CFO is coming from international results, right? And the way they played internationally. I think CFO is kind of like the barrier to, oh, you want to beat the LCK LPL? Okay, you have to get through me first. They're like that gym leader. It's almost like I could just stick them here, and they're like that divide, to play versus teams, you have to get past this point, it feels like. All right, let's go through actual placements. PSG and Team Secret Wales, I also haven't watched much of. I did watch a bit of PSG. I remember watching them play... I don't know who it was against, but I was watching a series that they played and Maple was just getting insanely gapped in lane. Like, it looked like Maple's individual skill was quite weak. It was Gam, was it? We were watching Gam versus PSG. His individual skill looked quite weak. So I can't give you too much data on these two teams. However, there is going to be a major region rundown episode that gets released tomorrow, which is the LCP major region rundown, where I have Vestian, who's a caster, and Molecule, who did a lot of talking in it to break the team down properly. All right. All right. I'll talk more about the teams in a second. I just want to check this. Worlds 2024. And I know there's an ad running, so I don't want to talk too much without people missing stuff. We're going to do favorite, top 8, dark horse, and then, yes, they will be a little bit in order. This is exactly what we did last year. Okay. Let's go through it then, because I think the favorite/favorites to win are, in most people's eyes, are probably just Genji, HLE, T1, BLG. I think these are just the favorites to win the whole tournament. Wait, I've missed one, actually. Wait. Oh yeah, I'm not cooked. I'm not cooked. All right, we're gonna do. Okay, the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna do 3 versions of the tier list. And you might sit there and be like, Caedrel, what the fuck? Why are you doing 3 versions? The reason we're doing 3 versions is we're doing version number 1, which is this is what should happen. This is what should happen based on the team strengths, and this is where they will place. Number 2 is where is the tier list of this is probably what will happen, analysis aside, which we did last year, which is basically like, this is kind of how Worlds works, this is kind of how these teams do at Worlds, and this is probably what's going to happen. And then version 3 is Vedius is going to come in, and he's going to tell everyone to shut the fuck up, and he's going to give us exactly what will happen. So Vedius will be the final decider of how the tier list will work, and he will tell everyone to shut the fuck up, basically. All right, I think for tiers, and I'll try to argue the best I can behind them, IG is remaining in God tier. For Dark Horse, I think it's always going to be kind of CFO. Now, I'm not sure if I'm saying CFO is a Dark Horse because I just haven't watched them domestically. I'm very happy for someone in chat or an analyst to say that, hey, domestically they look actually a lot worse. But internationally, this team is just known to upset. They've upset it. This team has been to every international. They've upset it first stand already, and no one really expected it. They've upset at MSI as well by almost beating T1. And I feel like at Worlds, there's going to be an upset somewhere. For good luck tier, I'm going to put these teams in good luck tier. I really don't think anything will happen with those teams. If something happens with those teams, then slap my ass and call me Susan. So obviously I did my pick'ems, but my pick'ems will always be different to like what my actual tier list will be, because pick'ems is more for memes and fun. So for low expectation, I would put Koi and Fnatic. This tier list might change as I go. Koi and Fnatic, I feel like they're both in the same boat. I don't really think they're going to do anything. They're not going to get out of top 8. I think that there's a world. I mean, think of Koi last year. I think they went 1-3 in Swiss, and their one win was against GAM or some shit. And Fnatic will have the same story. These teams won't go far. If they do, much love to them. Obviously, I'll be supporting the EU boys. There's no real arguments that I think that you can propose that makes it sound like they would beat any team above them right now. Koi went 0-3 at Worlds last year, did they? Jesus. So I think what I mean by this is good luck to me is they're going to go 0-3. Low expectation to me means they might win a series or a game here or there. I think they're probably relatively same in strength. Maybe Koi is a little bit stronger. For me, I feel like Oscar-Ridden versus Mirwin for some reason is always just Mirwin sided, and that was just the defining factor in that series. And that's why I think that they're a similar kind of team. Because I think performance-wise, they can do the same. It's just the reason that they lost. I really think that like top was just horrible to watch. For runners-up, I think that there's... I think KT is a team that would definitely lose. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, someone's going to have to get fucking dropped to low expectations here. Okay. Oh my god. Actually, you know what we'll do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, fuck, man. Fucking shit. You know, I do think there's a world where G2 could be a dark horse. Because the last 3 months of G2 has been fucking great. They have been fucking great. So there's a world where you can say that G2 actually might just make it to the top 8. But there only 8 can be in there, and there can only really be one dark horse. Fuck, man. These tier lists are so tricky. Yeah, I'm gonna put G2 in low expectations. I feel like, okay, I know I'm from EU. And what I mean by low expectations, I feel like I'm doing them dirty. Oh my god, it's who do I put in here? Do I put CFO in there? Do I put, like, I have to sit here and I have to think, do I think G2 would beat KT in a best of 5? I think it's quite hard, you know. Like, the barrier for entry for G2 is FlyQuest and KT. And I don't see them beating FlyQuest, and I don't see them beating KT. The only way that I could do this is I could be an EU pundit and hope, and I could put G2 up here. And then, you know, I could just drop like a KT or something. But I feel like that's just disingenuous, you know. I don't want to put them in low expectation. I feel like that's mean. I feel like you can't not look at the last 3 months of G2 and be like, fuck, something's brewing. Something with G2 is brewing this year. And I don't know if it's just because I always kind of fall into the trap of believing them, but I feel like something with G2 is brewing. So we'll figure that out in a second. Runners up, I feel like Tess and AL for me are kind of in the same boat. I feel like they're slightly a cut below BLG, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on AL, man. I think AL is a team that people are also sleeping on. I think if AL get the right meta read and they have enough time to think about what the fuck they're doing, then AL is definitely going to do well at this tournament. I could see a world where AL easily makes it to top 4 and then just gets gapped by like Genji or something in top 4. I could see a world where they get the top 8 and they win the first best of 5, and that's probably about it. And I know that people are going to sit there and say, Tess, you're coping. But we'll move on to the next tier list soon, which is what I think will happen, which is where I think Tess is probably going to bomb out on the Swiss stage. And I'm sorry to be a dickhead. But that might be what happens. But I don't think you can sit there and be like, wow, Tess looks pretty bad coming into this, because they went 5 games against BLG. They were pretty, I mean, they beat AL, but the series was very competitive. These 3 LPL teams are very competitive against one another. Let's think this through. God, this placement that always is what the rage bait starts. Let's weigh it up. I think AL easily beats KT easily. I think AL beats Fly KT in G2 in the best of 5 easy. Tess will be competitive. I don't think AL will beat the teams above them. 100% they won't. So I think there's definitely a world that they'll make top 8. I think Tess will do well. I think I'm gonna be... God, this is the worlds where I think everything is so close. Am I going to be like a fucking LCK complete biased idiot and just do that? And the reason... let me defend myself here. The reason I'm making it look like that is I think Genji, HLE, T1 could... My personal opinion is I think they could all beat each other at any time in the split. Or it comes down to the small things. Maybe Genji, I would say, is definitely like a cut above. But I think T1 Hammerlife, and I know people are going to sit there and say, Caedrel, Hammerlife 3-0 T1. Yes, I know that. But I could also say that Genji lost KT, and I can also say that HLE fucking had a shit summer split. I think that these 2 teams could beat each other any day. I think T1 was very competitive against Genji like the week after they got fucked by Hammerlife, which is fair enough. And the same thing applies to these three teams. I think any of these three teams could beat each other. However, I think the level of play from LCK is just slightly higher. And that's why I think that I'm going to put that the LCK team should be the favorite coming in. And the LPL teams are like just a cut above coming in as well. So that's to me like how it would look. I would see a Worlds here where you get to the top 4 with a very fair draw. And it's like Gen G, HLE on one side and T1 BLG on the other. And that's just the top 4 draw. I don't see a world where you get to Worlds this year and it's TES versus AL on one side and Gen G versus BLG on the other. I don't see that. So for me, I think that I would organize it a lot more aggressively towards LCK skewed. Simply based on the level of play and like the year at hand. Not to trigger any LPL endies. I do think that the one team that I see, obviously we'll get to the tier list soon, that beating an LPL team, I think FlyQuest could beat TES. I don't really see them beating AL or BLG. Bro, why is this guy says, why is there so many LPL teams at Worlds? What do you mean? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 LCK, 1, 2, 3, 4 LPL. Now we have to take Caedrel'S opinion out because I'm an actual KT hater and we have to sit there and I have to look at it and I'm like, will KT beat FlyQuest in best of 5? Yes, I don't see FlyQuest winning personally. I think KT can win. Oh, yeah, I think KT wins. Oh, I think it's very close. Yeah, I think KT wins. Maybe I'm just LCK biased. And I know you might sit there and be like, wow, this tier list isn't very exciting. You've kind of organized the winners of the winners and the losers and losers. But I think it's close. It's close. I think actually the biggest difference here for me is obviously Inspired. You know, I think Inspired could definitely like run that series. And I think Busio has been pretty impressive as well. You know, I think Busio is a pretty strong support. I think I would put FlyQuest above KT, yeah, and I'll put KT above G2. That's probably where I would put it. And that's me being slightly fair. I think if you're completely delusional, I think you could do this. Or not completely delusional, but very confident, you could do that. And if you're extremely crazy, you could do that, you know. I feel like my tier list doesn't really make sense because of the labels next to them. Yeah, does that make more sense? Does that make more sense? Anyway, I think that's just how it's organized. I really personally feel like a lot of worlds are very exciting and you can come in and like have these crazy takes that, you know, like last year, for example, I had a lot of faith in G2 and I was like, fuck, G2 are going to be the ones to make it up. You know, FlyQuest TL was quite close last year. I don't think FlyQuest is going to do much. Weibo's kind of a dark horse last year as well. And then Weibo did end up being a dark horse. And then G2 did actually flop. And then FlyQuest actually got a good draw and made it top 8. And almost beat Gen G, you know. But I feel like coming into this world, it's less exciting when it comes to excite. I don't know, less. There's less. It's more predictable. I think. I really think this world is predictable, in the sense that these three teams are close. These three teams are close. They're a cut above. These three teams are probably really close. That's probably a dark horse. These teams are fucked. That's just kind of it, in my opinion. And I'm sorry if it's supposed to be a bit more, you know, here's an argument for this. But I also think that brings a level of excitement, you know. I think it reduces the excitement of the tier list in and of itself, but I think it increases the excitement of the tournament. Because I could see this group here, this group of 6, anything could happen, you know. I really think anything could happen. I actually think maybe my hot take would be I think AL is probably going to be better than TES at this tournament. And I think the reason being is they'll probably have a better meta read. I think cohesively as a team, they are stronger and they have less. The holes that AL have are holes that are created by themselves, in my opinion. And TES's holes have been holes for a long while, you know. Like 369 for me is a massive driving factor behind TES. And I think Jackie Love still has Jackie Love problems of old. And I think that like there's individual issues that I see that are more individually focused rather than I think that I guess my hot take would be that AL probably performs better team-wide. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on AL. I think a lot of people are sleeping on AL. I really have faith in AL. And And that's not to hate on top esports. I think this tournament, I think for me, top esports, getting top 8 should be expected. Making top 4 would be strong. Making a finals would be fucking mental if TES do that. But I think contesting top 4 should be great for TES. Anyway, so that's probably my tier list of team strength coming into the tournament.